What's up, guys? I hope everybody is enjoying the sunshine. It is super nice out today. Oh my goodness, it's just been super hot lately. Gosh, I wanted to go swimming the other day. But anyway, this week we are in the third week of our little mini series that we're doing here called The U Effect. And I just want to give you guys a couple announcements before I jump in and talk about this message. But just to let you know, this is the last week for this series, and then this next week we're going to be transitioning into something a little different. So usually we have Instagram Live every Monday and Wednesday, right? So we're actually not going to continue doing that throughout the entire summer. We're going to be posting a video every Sunday for middle and high school, and we're going to be filling in Instagram Live with something else, but I'll let you guys know more about that later this week and early next week too. So anyway, I'm super excited about what's coming up, and you guys will be hearing more about that. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and jump into this last message, the U Effect. So really, this is an amazing story that I have always loved. I've read it a million times, and I haven't always completely understood what's going on, but we're going to be reading in Luke chapter 7, starting in verse 36. Okay, there's this story about this woman, and she's called a sinner in the story, right? And there's the story of her being forgiven by Jesus. Before I read it, I just want to ask a question. Like, have you ever been in a place in your life where you just feel like you had a lot of influence, or you were in really good standing with someone, and then maybe you lost it? Like, I think back to a time when I was in high school. I was really, really good friends with a couple of my classmates, right? And this was right when I was starting to become a Christian, and right when I was really deciding to follow Jesus. And these friends of mine were not Christians. Like, they were not Christians at all. And I had always talked and acted a certain way when I was with them. But once I became a Christian, I just felt like some of the things that I was normally doing needed to change, right? And so I started just naturally, as I began following Jesus, I began changing in a lot of different ways. One of the big ways was the way that I talked and the things that I joked about, right? That started changing slowly over time. And my friends really took notice of that, and it was weird. It was like they got bored of me. They didn't want to hang out with me anymore. I noticed we used to get together every week to we would hang out on the weekends, and I played video games or do whatever, and we just have fun. And they kind of stopped getting together with me, and it was just one of those things where it was kind of that hard loss, right? And I began to lose influence in my friends' lives because I was changing. And I guess that's not necessarily always that wasn't necessarily the worst thing ever. These guys, I mean, they're still my friends today, but we didn't necessarily they weren't necessarily the best influence in my life at that time. But that was one example, and I can think of other times where I had a really good relationship with someone. And I remember when I used to work. This was when I was in high school. I used to work at my school. I worked there during the summers, and I cleaned. It was kind of a fun job. But I really got along with my coworkers really well. And sometimes we're just in situations where we begin losing influence with people. I remember one time, one of my coworkers at the school, I made a really rude and snide comment to her. I was just trying to be funny. I thought I was being joking. I thought she was gonna laugh, but it was actually something that really offended her, and I ended up feeling so bad, and I tried to apologize to her. But ever since I had made that comment, I felt her being more distanced from me. She wasn't joking with me. She didn't necessarily seem like she wanted to be around me, and because of that comment, I began losing influence in her life, and as a Christian, it was really sad for me, because I was like, man, this is an opportunity where I could be a good influence in someone's life, and I was losing it because I was dumb, and I said this thing I shouldn't have. And we just all have those instances in our lives, right? And in this story, there's this woman And she had no influence over anybody. And here's why. I'll read you the story, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. So this is Luke 7, verse 36. One of the Pharisees asked him to eat with him, and he went into the Pharisee's house and reclined at the table. So they're talking about Jesus. And behold, a woman of the city who was a sinner, when she learned that he was reclining at the table in the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster flask of ointment, and standing beside him at his feet, weeping, she began to wet his feet with her tears, and wiped them with the hair on her head, and kissed his feet, and anointed them with ointment. So what's going on is Jesus is meeting with this Pharisee, right? He's at his house, they're getting dinner, and this Pharisee, they're the religious leaders. These guys are really, they're pretty uptight. They follow the rules, right? And he has Jesus over to their house, and then this woman shows up. And this woman is a person who has no influence in this society, right? She is classified as like a sinner. She's one of the people that you don't want to be around if you're a religious person, right? And so continuing on, it says, now when the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he said to himself, if this man was a prophet, he would have known who and what sort of woman this was who was touching him, for she's a sinner. And Jesus answering said to him, Simon, I have something to say to you. And he answered, say it, teacher. And so Jesus goes on to tell this story. A certain moneylender had two debtors. One owed 500, the other owed 50. When they could not pay, he canceled the debt of both. Now, which of them will love him more? Simon answered, the one, I suppose, for whom he canceled the larger debt. And he said to him, you have judged rightly. Then turning towards the woman, he said to Simon, do you see this woman? I entered your house. You gave me no water for my feet, but she has wet my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You gave me no kiss, but from the time I came in, she has not ceased to kiss my feet. You did not anoint my head with oil, but she has anointed my feet with ointment. Therefore, I tell you, her sins are forgiven, which are many, they're forgiven. For she loved much. But he who has been forgiven little loves little. And he said to her, your sins are forgiven. Then those who were at the table began to say among themselves, who is this that forgives sin? And then Jesus says to this woman, your faith has saved you. Go in peace. And man, what an interesting story this is. Jesus meets with this woman who doesn't really have any influence, and he has this amazing encounter with her where he forgives her for her sin, right? And when I think about this story, when I think about this woman, it's really amazing how Jesus, like when we have a relationship with Jesus, when we decide to follow him, he has a tendency to restore the influence on our lives. Because I want you to think about how many people in the world has this woman's story impacted since she has been alive. I mean, this story has been accounted for in the Bible, and millions and billions of people have read this story and learned from it. So this woman who had no influence has this encounter with Jesus, and Jesus just has this tendency to restore people through forgiveness and grace and mercy. And so what I want to ask you guys this week is, where are some areas in your life that maybe you have lost influence? And what are some areas in your life that maybe you haven't really sought Jesus in? What are some areas in your life where you're just trying to do it on your own, and you're not really trusting Jesus to work through you or to work in you or to forgive you? Because I know for some things, like I really struggle to forgive myself sometimes. And just knowing that Jesus forgives me, that allows me to move on. And so anyway, those are just some thoughts for this week. I hope you guys are doing awesome. I'm super excited for this summer, and we'll be communicating with you guys some more over the course of the next 2 weeks, and I'm looking forward to seeing you. Have a great day.